And Anna's right here in the background too. Welcome to our Friday night show, the show for the adventurous wine drinker. I think all you guys know it now and believe it. So we're gonna have a special guest today to discuss a special wine with us. We're gonna have Andrew Miramontes from Peter Weygandt Selections, and Albert Mann is the wine producer that we'll be talking about. Is going to be his Alsatian Grand Cru Gewürztraminer. So it's a great wine, great story behind it. It's one of the best wine producers in Alsace. So it's definitely very exciting. So we're just waiting for Andrew to jump in live on our Instagram. And ready, set, go.
And he's coming.
There we are.
Hi there. Hi, Andrew.
There we go. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for joining us on our show. So excited to have you.
Very excited, yeah.
Be here for sure. I love Alsace. I love wine.
Cool. Well, Andrew, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real fast so we know who you are and how you like wine?
Oh yeah, my name's Andrew Miramontes, and I got into wine by drinking a lot of wine, as I think most of us do. And then, you know, maybe at some point you realize, maybe I should try to monetize this somehow. So, no, just after college, I moved to New York City and started working in some wine shops. And then, you know, more and more of my time started being spent reading about it and, you know, being inspired by different producers and stuff. So in 2010, I went and had the opportunity to make wine in Oregon for one vintage with a really great producer there called Evesham Wood. And that was kind of the turning point for me. So at that point, I would say I became, you know, 100% dedicated to the wine industry. And yeah, slowly worked my way to running my own wine shop in New York City for about 4 to 5 years. And then moved to San Francisco with my wife. We now have a kid. But I had been a huge fan of Peter Weygandt's book as a buyer. So I'd been purchasing from him for a long time and was just a really big fan. So yeah, they had reached out to me when I moved out to San Francisco and said they wanted somebody to kind of pick up the torch for them. And I said, let's do it. And here we are. What, 6 years later. And
yeah, Andrew, you know what? It's funny. You're our first Instagram Live virtual tasting guest. And I think you were the first actual tasting guest we had when I opened the shop like over 2 years ago.
I'm pretty sure it was. I had my little girl. I was talking to my wife today, and I was explaining who you were. And I was like, oh, you remember that day? Yeah, she went Christmas shopping, and then my brother and his girlfriend came to the tasting, and we went out to dinner afterwards. And she's like, oh, yeah. So it's good to reconnect.
It's good to reconnect. And just another funny thing. So the last customer that I had today comes in, and he's asking me, when are you going to have more Evesham Wood wines in?
For real?
For real. It's so funny that you said that. I didn't know that about you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a special spot. 2010 is my vintage. So if you get a bottle of 2010 Evesham Wood, my blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh my goodness.
We have to now.
Yeah, I have to ask if they still have it. I think they're on 18 right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
You probably have some.
I do. I have probably 4 or 5 bottles left from my vintage.
Those are precious then. Okay.
They're in a good spot. They're really, really good. It's a special vintage too. So that was, but yeah. Cool. Yeah, so now I'm selling for Peter Weygandt. I work for the man now.
Well, yeah, and you know, speaking of that, I kind of introduced you in the newsletter this week. To me, Peter covers a lot of the areas. Well, I think for me, if I have to say what like immediately jumps out, it's Austria and Loire Valley. I think he's got some great artisanal small producers that makes spectacular wines, and for price points that are also spectacular in the sense that they're excellent.
Yeah, he's done a really good job. I think there's been a propensity for a lot of, you know, fine wine, like artisanal, like importers looking for small family-run wineries to kind of maintain that middle to high price point tier. And Peter's always made it a point to find value. He's got plenty of expensive wines. It's, you know, I think it's easy to find really great expensive wines. The challenge is to find great valued wines. And he's always made a point to have balance in his portfolio, which helps me. I mean, it's as a salesperson. You know, you just more diversity of clientele, so it's good. Yeah, for sure.
And you know, a couple of the wines, actually, it's funny the timeliness of it, because I had a customer called me out of state asking me about the Markovitz wines, and he's like, I went there. It's one of the best wineries that I've been to. It's in Austria, and the other thing he was saying is like, you're basically the only wine shop that's selling his wines online in the U.S., which is not unusual, because I sell quite a few of his wines. I sell this Weygandt, Blaufränkisch. I have his Chardonnay. There's even like a blend, a Pinot Noir. He's kind of like the light red wine master of the region. You kind of give a slight overview before we kind of jump into Albert Mann's wines. Yeah.
Yeah, Markovitz, Gerhard. So I got to visit him a few years ago. He's a special guy, and he's in an area called Carnuntum. So just kind of, there's Vienna, and then just just east of Vienna is Carnuntum, and it's actually this valley. It's very windswept, but it's very hot. So that kind of microclimate is really conducive for a lot of different varietals. So they have Burgundy, Bordeaux, classic Austrian varietals. It's all there, and he makes them all.
Yeah.
Like when you're in his cellar, there's hundreds and hundreds of barrels, all different shapes. He's got all the varietals, and he really has just a bunch of paint, and he just makes all these different cuvées from all these different varietals. And the diversity of that guy's cellar and portfolio is insane. He probably makes 40, 45 different wines. Peter imports maybe 20 of them. And maybe a handful of them get to the West Coast.
I know I had a special order from you over the last couple of years. And I'm always excited because, like I say, I kind of qualify them as quality wines, because frequently a lot of them retail below $20, and they get like 91, 92 points. I mean, it's highly acclaimed wines. Just in the context of California, you hardly ever see California wines with such a claim at that price point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And it's funny. I was mentioning to you, one of my customers. She actually texted me a couple of days ago, and she's like, "I just opened up the Markovitz Chardonnay. That's my new favorite white wine." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean."
Yeah, his Chardonnays and Pinots have gotten very, very good lately. So I think he's been working on that a lot. So that's a new venture for him. So he's picked up a few new Pinot and Chardonnay vineyards. So, hopefully there'll be more of that we can bring out to the market too. But there's a lot of Chardonnay and Pinot. It's a really tough category. I mean, even if it's really great quality, even if it's value, there's so much of it out there. It's hard to kind of get your stamp on those. So we rely on, honestly, small artisanal people looking to try new things, who are willing to kind of do the legwork to, put their own mark on the wines to recommend to their customers, rather than letting kind of monotonous categories like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay sell themselves on the shelf. Like, it's with familiarity. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'll just put in my 2 cents. So the reason I jumped out Chardonnay is because, as far as I know, Austria does not really produce that much Chardonnay. It's really Gruner is obviously their claim to fame white grape. And I frequently read Jensen Robinson. I kind of follow her and her recommendations. And if you go through her like very extended database of tasting notes, she literally has, I want to say, maybe 3 or 4 producers from Austria that she gave 17 points or above to their Chardonnays, and Markovitz is one of them. So we're talking about everybody makes Chardonnay, but he's one of the few who makes excellent Chardonnay from Austria.
Correct,
as I could tell. Yeah,
and in his region as well. He's one of the few that's really excelling. There are a couple other regions where there's a few more producers that are maybe well known for Chardonnay. Still, they're concentrating on Gruner and Riesling. Those are the 2 great.
Yeah,
Chardonnay will be a small part of most places' projects or portfolios. But there is another varietal, just a real quick tidbit. There is another name for Chardonnay in Austria called Morillon, Morillon, and it's more in southern Austria. And that's essentially, it's a clonal relation to Chardonnay. It's the Chardonnay varietal. And you'll see that more often, because that's more of the native. But how many people know that that's Chardonnay? It's just not something you see in the U.S. very often.
I've never
heard of it.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Do we want to talk about this wine?
Yeah, let's
talk about this one.
let's showcase this
Cool.
wine. And
Oh,
I'll
you
give
get
a
to
little
drink it too.
backstory
That's
too,
great.
because the timing is always funny. Because I had a different customer talk to me this week, and I was mentioning that I'm going to have Andrew on our show, and we're going to be talking about Albert Mann wines. And he's like, "Oh, I was there 2 years ago," and he actually sent me the pictures of the tasting room,
Right.
Albert Mann. So he was like, "Oh man, that's just awesome." And the funny thing is, one of the wines he was tasting was the Riesling Grand Cru Schlossberg,
Yeah.
2016, which is the very first wine I ordered for you when I opened the shop. And I was like, man, that's just hilarious.
Very cool. Yeah. No, this is a special winery. Yeah. Shall I tell you a little bit about the winery? And the
Yes,
history?
Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as Alsace goes, this domain is located in Colmar. So Alsace is kind of north to south. It's kind of a line down, and Colmar is right in the center of Alsace. And it's the culinary capital. So a lot of the great producers have some sort of tie to Colmar.
We have a little map here. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
For
absolutely.
high tech.
Maps make my life easy. You can just click and point. So,
Alsace.
yeah, it's just kind of from north to south. If you put your finger right in the middle, that's kind of around the area where Albert Mann, the vineyards are.
Okay.
And again, there's a lot of Germanic influence in this area. So the food is very German-like. It's sausages, it's terrines, it's stewed meats, and things of that nature. So, which goes really well with the voluptuous, kind of warm-fruited and rich wines that you kind of get out of Alsace. I'm pretty sure Sundays it's the warmest growing region in all of France, which is most people don't realize it's warmer as far as how many days of sun you get uninterrupted by rain. It is the warmest growing region, so that's why you get such rich and full-fruited wines there. But the domain itself is actually more of a tribute domain. Albert Mann was never alive while the winery was around.
Oh, okay.
Albert Mann comes from a really long wine growing family dating back to the 1600s, and then kind of in his time on Earth, leading up to his death in 1994, he was really one of the pioneers that was introducing really deep end sustainability into Alsatian wine. Post World War II, a lot of Europe and a lot of winemaking kind of went conventional. It was just it's just kind of what happened. So he was one of those that really turned that corner and put the thought process back into growing sustainable fruit and concentrating more in the vineyard rather than in the cellar. And that carried through and really spoke to a lot of producers, and he inspired a pretty large movement. That's honestly, it's even revved up a lot more lately. Alsace is definitely something to really consider moving forward heavily, and he is one of those reasons. So he passed away in '94, and his daughter had married a gentleman named Maurice, who had a brother Jackie, and they come from a wine growing family themselves as well. And at that point, by the time of his death, they were fully integrated and working for Albert at his domain, which was more of a grower domain. They didn't make as much wine. They were selling a lot of fruit and negotiating. But at his passing, kind of in tribute, they started Domaine Albert Mann, in tribute. And so Jackie and Maurice Berthelme are really Domaine Albert Mann, and they are the ones that have taken this winery into, honestly, even more so in Europe and even in the Asian market. I mean, this is a globally recognized winery. I mean, you see the scores they get, you see the press they get, the critical acclaim, and they just do it right. So the wines are really great, and they have very many levels of wines. So I believe they have about 50 to 60 acres of vineyards, which sounds big, but it's not really. When you make wines of this quality, you're getting very low yields out of the wine. So you're not making a lot of wine from all these vineyards. So, and essentially they concentrate more on drier style wines as much as possible. There's always a touch of sweetness in the wines, but it's usually in balance and harmony, and it shouldn't feel too sweet. Yeah, I mean, and they've just carried the torch, and they've been. It was actually the third producer Peter imported. He started importing in the late '80s, and it was out of hobby, and hobby became passion, and passion became obsession, and now he's got 120 European producers. So, this domain, Maurice and Jackie were were integral in introducing him to essentially every single other Alsatian producer he has in his portfolio, as well as some people outside the region as well. So it's been a very important producer for Peter as well as Alsace. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly rated. It's 95 points, wine enthusiast, and 94 points finest. And I had it earlier, and actually I was telling Igor, I was like, so balanced and lovely, and yeah, it's very light hand, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you can taste it. I always I have it earlier so I can get my tasting notes ready rather than having them live. So I think that it's peach, mandarin, pink grapefruit, honeysuckle, and some green tea. So that's what I think. But, you know, more than just the tasting notes, it's just so balanced and seamless the way the notes kind of go together. So it's very special. I had it and I was like, Igor, if I was blindfolded, I would know that this wine is spectacular.
Well, you know, it's funny. You were mentioning that Vinous Magazine gave it 94 points.
Yeah.
And I actually pulled up, they did a whole vertical tasting of this particular cuvee, the Gewürztraminer, from the
Verstentum.
Yes. And Ian Diagata, he's one of the writers for Vinous Magazine. He says, the very first sentence, I love the wines of the main Albert Mann for their varietal accuracy, purity, and transparency to sight. So I think that's what you were describing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they essentially have, you know, the crux of they make several different types of wine. They make sparkling wines, they make sweet wines, they make late harvest wines, but the bulk of their wines are kind of in two categories. They have wines that they put under screw cap, and those are, you know, more affordable side of the wine spectrum. And those are to get the purity of the varietal. It's a Pinot Gris or a Riesling or a Gewürztraminer or a Pinot Blanc. And then they have their terroir wines, which lead up to the Grand Cru, which are the expressions of single sites. And then you have the Grand Crus specifically, which are the pinnacle of the vineyard sites. And that was started in 1975, actually. They started identifying the best vineyards in all of Alsace, and there's about 50 of them now. Yeah. And they all have their individual distinct soil compositions. They're all sloped. They're all perfectly situated to the sun, so they get that perfect. You know, they're just the best sites. And you nail the T note. You nail. I will say, I applaud you for picking out the T note, because that's pretty quintessential for this vineyard. You get, it's depending on the varietal. If it's Riesling, you can get some greenish teas. Sometimes you get some black tea notes, some chamomile tea notes. But there's always tea notes in the Verstentum, in my experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
very cool.
Yeah, no, it's just fascinating. And I think, you know, we were talking about Schlossberg because he has the two or three Grand Cru sites that he makes the wines from.
Yeah, I think there's 4. There's Schlossberg, which many would consider that's one of the best of all the Grand Crus, because it's 100% granite soil. It's the hardest, most compact soil. So the wines are more mineral and they're more tight and they age longer. Verstentum it's all limestone, so it's very tight. And then he has one called Steingrubler. Yeah. Which there's another, I believe you've worked with a Gewürztraminer from there too. Yes, that's more sandstony. So while it's still a Grand Cru site, the wines that come from there, the soil's softer, and the wines really take on the personality of the soil. So if it's a hard soil, you get more compact wines. If you get sandy, softer soils, it tends to be a little more softer, more floral. You get kind of more softer tropical fruit notes and things like that. They really do reflect the soil of each site. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can't remember the fourth one. Sorry.
Well, I think Schlossberg, from what I've read, I think that's what started the whole Grand Cru, nomenclature. I think that was the very first one.
That was one. Yeah, that was one. I think there was 10. I think there was 10 vineyards in 1975 that were elevated. Yeah. And then ever since then, now there's 50. But yeah, it was one of the, it's been historically one of the great sites of Alsace for sure.
Yeah, and you're right. I have 4 different cuvées. And I think Steingubler, this one, Schlossberg, I have a Riesling. Yeah. And I think I also have this Riesling. So I have the Gewürz from this side and I have the Riesling from this side.
Oh, cool. You should drink those side by side. That'd be fun.
I think all 4 sounds like fun. And it sounds like from what you're describing, you'd be a fascinating tasting, just tasting different Grand Crus with the different soils. How, the contrast. Yeah. with those sites. That'd be, I think, great.
Yeah, I mean that's the magic. I mean that's the drinking is learning in this kind of situation. I mean you kind of, and that's it. You have to taste the wines. There's no in the end there's no substitute for really truly understanding what's in the bottle and how it translates to where it comes from, without it in your glass and smelling and experiencing it. I mean it's yeah.
We have Shannon and Larry on our Facebook Live, and they're mentioning. So Larry imports wines also. He has Barb's Boucher wines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that producer. From
those are good wines.
Yeah, which is also in Steingubler. It was one of the sites that they work on. So yeah, they're mentioning how beautiful it is to be in Alsace.
And they're drinking the Rosenberg 2007 as well.
Oh, very cool.
Oh,
Pinot Gris.
I know, they're just teasing us.
Yeah, they are.
I think we're the host of the show.
You guys can host.
Rosenberg, I believe, starting in 2017, they've adopted a Premier Cru site system in Alsace. So starting with 17 vintage, we'll start seeing some Premier Cru sites. Okay. So I'm pretty sure Rosenberg is going to be a Premier Cru site starting in 17.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Wow, very interesting.
That's awesome. All this
that is awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just going to make them more expensive, though. So I don't know.
Well, yes, but you know, I mean, these wines. This one I retail for 45, and the Riesling is more expensive. It's around 70. But the scores are. I mean, if we're talking about 95-point scale, I think it's all relative. I mean, if we compare to once again California wines of that same price point, these are pretty special wines.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. You know, if you take Gewürztraminer, I'm not aware. There's great Gewürztraminers that I've had. Navarro Vineyards up in Anderson Valley makes a great dry Gewürztraminer. It's a beautiful wine. Yeah. But as far as somebody committing a vineyard like this to the varietal of Gewürztraminer, I don't know if that exists in California. It's planted to something a little bit more, more safe or something. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, Gewürztraminer from Alsace, that's basically the best expression of the grape anywhere in the world.
I don't think you can argue with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
for sure.
Cool.
Well, this was a great overview. You know, Andrew, I had kind of one question. How do you think Peter's wines would work in restaurants in East Bay? I'm talking about Walnut Creek, Danville, Alamo, San Ramon, where we're located, because I see a lot of California wines on the menu. Yeah. But I think the cuisines are so diverse. I think it would be great with Peter's portfolio. So.
No, 100%. And there is a little bit of a hesitation sometimes to work with such a heavy European portfolio in the Bay Area. Within the confines of San Francisco, there's a little more confidence. As soon as you leave, it's a little bit more variable on who has that kind of confidence in themselves. That being said, I mean, Peter's book specifically is built on the classics. Yeah. You have familiar categories, Bordeaux. You have Sancerre, which is an extremely familiar category across our country. You have Burgundy. You have Champagne. So, I mean, you have from your clientele, even if they're American-centric drinkers or they have minimal experience with say French wine. Those are more categories that they've probably come across or can feel a little bit more comfortable with. Rioja, Barolo. I mean, he does have some esoteric regions, especially when you get into the nether regions of Austria and things of that nature. But there's a starting point with familiar categorical wines that are very classic to their region. That is a launching point to really get to understand Peter's palate, and then you can kind of explore from there. And most people do. I mean, Sancerre it's the gateway drug into Peter's portfolio. That's why we have 8 producers that he's handling. And it's just, and then you just kind of, you launch into that and you taste. Yeah. I mean, if, you understand this, if you love a wine and you bring a bunch of wine in and for whatever reason, you can't sell it, you got to drink it. So, you as a buyer, you as a proprietor, you just got, that's your fail safe. You got to like what you bring in. And enjoy it. You're going to sell it, but I'm just saying for the exercise purposes, you got to drink it. So,
well, I love to have your wines in my store. I love the geekier the better, and geekier meaning great quality wines that nobody else has. But if, more restaurants have them too, more power to them. I think it'll elevate their status as restaurants to have something more eclectic. I've always kind of thought that a lot of like Michelin starred restaurants and stuff like that, the reason they get Michelin stars is not because of the cuisine, it's because of the wine list that they attribute. I think a lot of people think it's vice versa, but I think it's the wine that dictates the Michelin stars.
Yeah, it's in harmony. I mean, to get a Michelin star, it's the wine, service, and food. I mean, none are more important than the others. So they work in harmony. And honestly, those are some of the biggest supporters of Peter's portfolio. Our 2-3 Michelin star restaurants. I mean, those are a lot of our top clients. So,
so you kind of, I think, if you put 2 and 2 together, a lot of the wines that we carry, you'll find them in the 2 or 3 Michelin star restaurants. That's almost the equivalency, right?
I mean, Albert Mann Grand Cru, absolutely, 100%. I guarantee you. I mean, how many? There's a good chance that 25 to 50% of all 3 Michelin star restaurants in the world, there's a good chance that they have Albert Mann Grand Cru on their wine list. I mean, it's just, that's where it all goes. That's why it's so hard to get out here.
And vinousreverie, that's the other place. The Michelin star restaurant is vinousreverie.
There you go. Well, you have patience. You select the wine, and working with a portfolio. I guess sometimes there's a 3 to 4 week window to get some of these more special bottlings out here. It's so if you have the patience, it's possible.
Well, just exactly what's happening now, right? I ordered a wine from you about 3 weeks ago, and it's coming in next week. And it's some
Tuesday.
Sancerre producers. And just the last shout out, you have Clement Berthier.
Clement Berthier, yeah.
Berthier, yeah. And we did one of the virtual tastings. So it's not Sancerre, it's the village right next to Sancerre that they're making their famous Sauvignon Blancs from.
Yeah, it's Coteau de Ginois.
Coteau de Ginois, yes. And that's another producer that about 2 months ago, Jansen's was raving about. She was saying they're just about the next great Sauvignon Blanc producers in the area. So highly acclaimed wines, yeah.
Well, you have a very good Sancerre coming, the Cuvée Ovide from Pierre Morin. That's a very special Sancerre. So,
can you give us just a quick overview before we go on that wine?
Yeah, I got to visit Pierre last November.
Yes.
And he is a very special guy. He actually put us up for the night. I was with Peter, and we showed up there about 6:30. It was dark and tiny. He has 13 steel tanks in which he makes his Sancerre, his Sauvignon Blancs in, and he has 3 fiberglass tanks where he makes his Pinot Noir. It's a minuscule cellar. But he's just such a jovial, goofy personality. He jabs. He likes to make you laugh. And I really think, it helped me understand his wines. His wines carry that personality. They're playful. They have kind of just a wildness to them. But, they're classic in Sancerre. They're mineral. They're fresh. They're kind of spicy and juicy. And the Cuvée Ovide is definitely a wine that you can age for a while. You're going to find a little bit more of kind of really compact minerality in there. It's a really cool wine. I mean, it's going to drink delicious right out the gate, but something to buy 3 bottles, drink 1, and then track it over the next 10 years. I mean, that's
awesome.
Wine that you would do, yeah.
Hey, Andrew, this was awesome. Thank you so much for doing it. I hope you'll join us again because I thought this was a fantastic show.
Awesome.
So much information, so much fun. Yeah.
This was great. No, I appreciate it. This is fun. I like this.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, you too. It's good to see you. Have a good weekend. Be safe.
Yes.
Thank you. You too. Bye.